You're listening to the Vegas Take right here on the all-new 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDAWN. All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro. So glad you could join us on a Friday. Michael Avenatti's been a friend of this show for a long time. The last 6 months, he's been on our show just about every week. Well, the reason why he hasn't been on this week is because he's behind bars, but not just any cell he's been in. The same cell that El Chapo was in. He's in solitary confinement 24/7 for white-collar crimes, allegedly. Make no mistake about it. The guy we have with us on the line right now, his name is William Mersey. He spent time in that same jail for white-collar crimes, for tax fraud, I believe. And he also was there and spent some time, one-on-one time, with Jeffrey Epstein when he was in that same jail. He joins us right now on the line. William, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I'm okay. No problem. You're welcome.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks a lot, William.
So I guess when you first heard that Michael Avenatti was in 24/7 solitary confinement, what was the first thing that went through your mind? I would imagine some of the stuff you had to experience there, right?
Well, I was never in the SHU because I was a model inmate. And I made sure to be a model inmate because I didn't want to go anywhere near the SHU.
What were the conditions like there?
Not for me.
What were the conditions like there for you?
In the SHU or in general population?
Both. What was that facility like for you?
It was extremely boring.
Mm-hmm.
And the worst thing was not the staff, but the inmates themselves.
Really? So there are a lot of dangerous inmates there?
A lot of gangbangers, gunslingers, and not a lot of white-collar criminals.
So it's my understanding that you had, and correct me if I'm wrong, you had one-on-one time with Jeffrey Epstein. Can you share any of those conversations you had with us that stands out to you that you remember?
Jeffrey and I talked about investments. We talked about how I got myself in trouble and the escort industry, which of course was very interesting to him. And because that's how I made my money that I didn't pay taxes on. The
escort industry? Is that what you just said?
Yes, I owned an adult advertising agency and had an escort website.
So you're telling me that when you bring that stuff out about escorts, all of a sudden his eyes sort of lit up and he found a lot of interest in that.
Ring-a-ding-ding.
So
absolutely.
So go on. Okay, so you talked a little bit about your business with him. Did Jeffrey Epstein ever talk to you about his alleged crimes? Did he ever get into detail with that with you?
No, because he was a suicide inmate, so it really wasn't my role to depress him. It was my role to entertain him and make life worth living.
So what was your judgment on him just in your interactions with him when you were in that facility? Did he appear to you to be a normal guy? Did he appear to you to be a guy that was going to kill himself, and do you believe that story?
I did not see that he was going to kill himself. I really didn't feel that. He was an average, normal guy. He wasn't a whiner. He wasn't a prima donna. He ate his food. He didn't complain. And I don't think that anybody killed him but Jeffrey Epstein, because I had a friend who worked in the kitchen who had the cell next to him in the SHU. Mm-hmm. This guy tried to set up a drug deal on TrueLinks, which is a monitored email program for inmate use. He got caught. He got thrown in the SHU. He had the cell next to Epstein. And when he got out, he told me that he heard Jeffrey tearing up sheets that night and that nobody came in or out of that unit.
Wow.
Including the officers.
So you're telling...
They did not come and check anything.
So you're telling me that the man who was in the SHU next to Epstein the night that Epstein allegedly killed himself, you're telling me that this person who's in the SHU that you knew there told you that he heard Epstein tearing up sheets in his cell by himself, perhaps hours before he killed himself. Is that what you're saying? I just want to make sure I got that right.
Yes, absolutely. And this guy had no agenda.
Wow, that's unbelievable.
I mean, he just came out of the SHU and said, "Hey, I'm back. And by the way, let me tell you about Jeffrey Epstein. I heard him tearing up sheets. Nobody killed him. He killed himself."
So he had no reason to lie about it.
So you think, William, do you think that the SHU might have just drove Epstein to suicide because it's that bad?
That was my first impression. And I went to the shrinks and I said, you put him in the SHU and he killed himself because he couldn't stand it there.
Even though
Some people like it. Only a few people like it. I had a bunkie who went to the shoe, and he said he didn't mind it at all. But the shoe it's not just confining; it's loud.
Right.
Yeah. So what specific?
I mean, the whole prison is loud. Prison is loud almost by definition.
Mm-hmm.
What specific conditions about the shoe do you think would make someone like Jeffrey Epstein want to kill themselves?
All night noise and just complete animals, the worst of the worst in the prison.
So let me ask you this:
Not really his element.
No, and that makes sense. And that information that you just told us is certainly riveting information. I hate to say it like this, but yeah, I hope there wasn't some sort of conspiracy. In this situation, if he took his own life, it's certainly better than the alternative of somebody killing him. I'm sure you would agree with that. So you had a 10-month stay there for tax fraud. My question is this. This is a white-collar crime. Do you think it's appropriate for somebody like you or a Michael Avenatti to be spending time with gangbangers and violent criminals? Because I find that to be troubling.
Hell no. I was not happy. But there was a reason that I was placed there.
Why is that?
Because I had a state charge to deal with, which was really one and the same with my federal charge. It was just a tag team. And the state court was 500 yards away.
Right.
And they knew they were going to have to move me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's difficult to move an inmate from a federal prison for an appearance in a state court. That was the first thing. The second thing was I was a short timer, relatively. And the third thing was I was local. I lived a mile and a half away from the prison. So let's put Mersey in MCC. We can ferry him back and forth easily, and we don't care if he's with gangbangers.
Mm-hmm. His name is William.
Not our problem. He should have paid his taxes.
I agree. His name is William Mersey. His story is published in the Daily Beast. We have a link to it on our Twitter page, which is @TheVegasTake. I understand that Paul Manafort was there when you were there as well. Did you ever have any interactions with him? Did you see him there?
Manafort was my bunkie.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, so we have a lot to get
They
to.
moved him into my room, hand-picked.
All right, so we have a lot to get to with you, William, in regards to Paul Manafort. What were your interactions like with him, and can you share any riveting conversations you had that you think are important for people to know?
Well, I can tell you that Paulie said that there was no Russian collusion, whatever, emphatically, but I got the idea that he told himself that so many times he could pass a lie detector test with
So
it.
he convinced himself that.
Yeah.
Did Manafort?
But I'll tell you interesting things about Manafort. He stood the intimidators down. Epstein did not. I mean, they got in his face, right? Yo, you Trump's boy?
Wow.
Said, listen, I grew up in the streets just like you.
Did he ever talk about Donald Trump with you, William, and what were those conversations like? Because I would imagine you guys brought up the president a lot.
No, we didn't.
He
said that he thought Michael Cohen was not a bright guy, not a pit bull, and not a good lawyer.
So why do you think Donald Trump would pick him then? That's what confuses me.
I mean, pick him as a campaign manager?
No, I'm talking about Michael Cohen.
Oh, because he would do his bidding.
Right, that makes sense.
He was his fixer.
He was just he was his lapdog.
What other?
I don't want to say that.
No,
but.
I understand. But what other conversation? Since you bunked with Paul Manafort, and some people think he could die behind bars. I mean, you spent time with him as his bunkmate. So give me your impressions of him. You were in close quarters with him. What are your impressions of Paul Manafort? What did he ever talk about the crimes he allegedly committed? While he was convicted.
He was mostly in denial.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't own his crimes. I knew exactly what Paul Manafort did because we had similar crimes. I mean, they put two birds of a feather together.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you, he took a lot of pills.
Yeah, he was taking.
He had a battery of medications, and but he wasn't hobbling around. He wasn't infirm, but he did have a lot of medications, and he snored a lot. He was a big snorer. And he was a refined guy. He'd wake up in the middle of the night and turn on his reading light and read the Bible. We talked American history a lot. We had a common interest in American history. I bring stuff back from the library, like the Andrew Jackson biography by John Meacham.
Uh-huh.
And we both read. So he has a law degree from Georgetown. He's an intelligent guy.
Well, William, I have to ask you this. Here you are, a guy that you had some issues with tax fraud. I get that. But, then you're all of a sudden you're in this prison. You're talking to, Jeffrey Epstein. You're having personal conversations with him. And your bunkmate is Paul Manafort, Donald Trump's former campaign manager. I mean, these are two arguably of the most recognizable guys on the planet at that time. What is going through your mind? I mean, this has to be a little crazy for you, is it not?
You think?
I mean, what is going through your mind?
I was just amazed. I mean, I was lying in my bunk reading when along comes the assistant warden and the bubble officer, and they're like, "Mersey, you got a bottom bunk, right?" Because my previous bunkie had just been sent home, so I had a single. And I was like, "Yeah, but I'm working 2 jobs. I'd like to keep me." No, forget that. We got a guy for you. So I said, "How about I move Rob across the hall in here? Because the devil in prison is better than, I don't know who you're moving in." They go, no, this guy's for you. He's famous.
Sure. Yeah.
So I said, "Well, you mean he's infamous? He's in federal prison."
My God.
But they didn't know the distinction, right?
Yes, that is absolutely crazy. Okay, so this is, I wanted to, because we're pressed on time here, I wanted to ask you about this, because as you said, Michael Avenatti is now, I know you weren't in the SHU, but Michael Avenatti is in that same prison that you were in. Can you describe to us what your understanding of what Michael is having to go through on a daily basis in that prison? What can you tell us?
Well, he's cold. I can tell you that. Because those vents blow cold air 23 hours a day. And he probably doesn't have a sweatshirt or thermals, which you really need there. And he's probably huddled under, one of those scratchy blankets, and he's not showering very much. They won't give him a shaver because guys break open the shavers and then they hide the razor blades. They do not want him hurting himself. That's why they have cameras on him.
Do you think that his conditions?
And, he's eating a lot of food. He's getting fed a lot.
No pillows? Is that what you said?
Yeah, no. The SHU guys get a lot of food. They get big plates of food. It's not the Four Seasons, but you're fed well enough. And he's sitting in the cell alone.
So he has a trial coming up.
Separated from the rest of the SHU somewhat.
All right. Well, gosh, I first of all, we're glad that you're out now. Let me just say that, William.
That makes 2 of us, buddy.
Yeah. Well, listen, William, you served your time. You paid your debt. I appreciate you sharing with us some of these stories. And when you have a little bit more time, William, we'd love to have you back on and just share your experiences, your life story. And I think it's also important for you to tell people, listen, you made your mistakes, you paid your debt, and now you deserve to get back out there in society and do what you need to do to survive and to make it. So, William, I can't thank you enough for taking some time to join us. And if it's okay with you, maybe at some point down the road, we would certainly love to have you. Unless you're willing to stay for another 10 minutes. I mean, we have to take a break. That's up to you, William.
You want me to stay? I
would love you to. Can you do another? Okay, William, that's really nice of you. We really appreciate that. So here's what we're going to do, William. We're going to put you on a brief hold here. We're going to take a break, and then we have more questions to get to you. If you're just joining us, we're speaking with William Mersey. Spent some time in the same prison as Paul Manafort. He was Paul Manafort's bunkmate. How crazy is that? He also had private conversations with Jeffrey Epstein that he shared with us. But I also want to get to the fact of why a guy like this man, William Mersey, who committed white-collar crime, he's not a violent criminal, why the hell is he spending time in this prison? It makes absolutely no sense to me. It is ridiculous. I want to talk to him a little bit about that, and we'll also maybe take some phone calls at 702-257-5396. We will take your calls. We will have William on the other side of the break. He's been nice enough to stick around for another segment with us. The man who was a bunkmate of Paul Manafort and had private conversations with Jeffrey Epstein. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back right after this with William on 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDAWN. All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro. Our guest on the line is William Mersey. He spent time in the same jail. He was bunked with William Manafort. He had one-on-one conversations with Jeffrey Epstein. And another reason why we wanted to have him on the show is because Michael Avenatti is in the SHU 24/7 in that same facility. And it is William Mersey that has decided to stick around. And we appreciate him taking some time to come back with us. William, I want to ask you this. What does it say about that facility that people would rather be out in general population having their lives threatened by, violent inmates than be in the SHU? I mean, how bad is the SHU if that's the case?
Well, I think the SHU was bad everywhere. I don't think it's NCC in particular that has a bad shoe. You don't want to be in protective custody unless you absolutely have to be.
Mm-hmm.
And in the case of Michael Avenatti, and now that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself, or some people think he got murdered, doesn't matter. NCC's had enough bad publicity. They don't need another high-profile inmate killing himself or dying in the prison. Mm-hmm. That really wouldn't work for them. And that's why they have him in the shoe. And that might be why they're going to keep him there. If he's going to be in the prison for a while and his lawyer prevails on the prison to move him because the conditions are so bad, they're going to look for somebody like me. But there's a problem that Michael has that Manafort didn't. Manafort was a sentenced inmate, so he could go in the cadre unit, 5 South, which is all guys who are sentenced and more civilized because they have an out date.
Mm-hmm.
Michael's going to have to go into pretrial. And, you know, that's I termed it the wild animals versus the domesticated ones.
Right.
The Daily Beast wouldn't print that. They like the clothes, or so we can't use that. It's too politically incorrect.
Well, you can say whatever you want on this show.
We can definitely use that.
Right, I just did.
Yeah, and we are not we are not going to censor you one bit, and we appreciate your honesty.
So, Michael Avenatti.
But all the blood that was shed at NCC was in the pretrial unit. It was not in the cadre unit where I was.
Sure.
So Michael Avenatti is in a giant case with Nike. We're talking a $30 to $40 billion a year company and one of the biggest companies in the world. And he has some damning evidence. At least he's told us he has some damning evidence, against him as far as paying recruits and being involved with the NCAA in a corrupt manner. Do you believe that the way that he is being treated right now in the shoe, it will affect him directly with his ability to try his case or defend himself in his case against Nike?
Probably not. He looks like a pretty tough guy.
Yeah,
I think he's inconvenienced. I don't think he's traumatized.
Mm-hmm. He's
being fed, and he's not freezing to death. He's uncomfortable. But
right. There's a difference
he'll
there.
Survive.
So talk to me a little bit about. You say they feed people okay, but yet the food. I would imagine the food isn't very tasty there. Can you go into a little bit more detail with the conditions of how many times you were allowed to shower, how many phone calls you were allowed to make? What was the food like there? What were the conditions like in detail?
Are you talking about general population?
Yeah. I know. I understand you weren't in the shoe, but what was the food like there, and how many times did they let you shower? Those type of things.
As far as shower, you could shower all day if you wanted to, unless guys were like, "Yo, Mersey, get out of the shower."
Right.
No, we had a really good shower, a private shower.
Mm-hmm.
So the personal hygiene is a priority in prison. If a guy stinks, guys are going to let him know.
Right.
Go take a shower. So guys aren't stinking in federal prison.
Gotcha.
The food is there's a lot of food.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of fruit. There's a lot of cereal. There's greasy beef that can give you agita. There's chicken. There's soy burgers. There's fish. The food's really not that bad, and you do get a lot of it. You can put on pounds in prison, and if you work in the kitchen like I did, I had so much food I didn't know what to do with it.
I got to ask you this, going back to Jeffrey Epstein for a second. Going back to your first conversation. The first time you approached him, were you a little scared or worried? Like the first time you met him?
We were used to high-profile guys down there. We had Bonasawi, who got 40 years for planning to set off a bomb at a Beyonce concert. We had Nicholas Gibson, who beheaded his lawyer and said he had 32 bodies.
Did you ever talk to Gibson?
Yeah.
So
as much as I did Epstein.
So you talked to Gibson, the man, like you just said, who beheaded his attorney. What did you have to? What are the conversations like with a guy like that?
Oh, just everything. He was the most normal acting and sounding person, and he was an old personality. He was like an East Village hipster.
Gosh.
And he was apprehended by the police 300 yards from my front door.
Oh, my gosh.
And his last month in freedom was in my neighborhood.
But you understand where I'm talking about, William, because here you are. You're a guy, you committed some tax fraud, but you're not a violent criminal, right? I would imagine you don't normally have
I shouldn't have been in prison.
I agree.
In the first place.
Well, okay, and listen, I'm on your side. You're not a violent criminal. You certainly shouldn't have been in that jail. I'm on your side. But with that being said, the reason why I bring this up is you're having conversations with people that are the most violent criminals. You're talking to a guy that beheaded his attorney. He didn't just murder him; he cut off his head. I mean,
I know.
I can't even understand what that's like to even meet somebody like that, let alone have a conversation with somebody like that. What was that like for you?
Well, the thing was that he was not a dark character. His facade, he had that Ted Bundy thing going, where it's like he was a nice, charming guy.
Gosh, isn't that crazy?
He did try to kill himself while I was down there.
He did.
He slit his throat with razor blades that he got from a disposable razor. He brought them in his hair, and the officers missed it.
Mm-hmm. So when you're having conversations with these inmates, like the Jeffrey Epsteins, because I know you didn't bunk with Jeffrey Epstein, obviously.
He wanted to bunk with me, but they wouldn't let him.
Are you serious? So that conversation.
I'm serious, yeah.
So Jeffrey Epstein wanted. Would you have bunked with Jeffrey Epstein? Would you have done that?
Yes.
You would have.
He wasn't the killer.
So do you believe though that Jeffrey Epstein?
Not Gibson, though.
I'm not talking about Gibson. Yeah, and I don't blame you for that. But, you understand that Epstein was accused of doing so many horrible things to so many young children. Does that not enter your mind when this guy says to you, hey, you know what?
There are a lot of chomos in prison. I didn't judge them.
You didn't judge any of them. And I guess you probably don't.
Plus, they were post-pubescent girls. To me, there's a difference between pre-pubescent and post-pubescent. He wasn't going to traumatize those girls. They were already, Weisenheimers.
Did he ever
fast girls?
Did he ever talk about politicians that he used to hang out with, like Bill Clinton, the Clintons, for example, or Trump? Did he ever bring up politics into any conversation?
He didn't bring up politics, but I asked him for anecdotes.
Uh-huh.
And I don't think I want to repeat that stuff on the radio.
But it does have to do.
You can read it in the Daily Mail article.
Okay, fair enough. But he did bring up prominent people that he hung around with, I would imagine.
Well, he didn't. I didn't. I asked him about. Basically, I said, give me one anecdote that's emblematic of Donald Trump's essence.
Right.
And I can tell you this story. He said, okay, I got it. We were flying in my private plane from New York to Miami, and I had a French girl with me, and Donald said, why don't we land in Atlantic City so I can show your friend my casino? And Jeffy said, I'm not landing in Atlantic City. It's all white trash down there. So the French girl said, what means white trash? And Trump says, it's me without money. I'm just reporting what Jeffrey said to me.
That's funny. Any other stories?
I actually believe that.
Any other stories that Jeffrey said about Trump that you thought might be entertaining or interesting for the people to know?
No, that was the only one.
So he didn't bring up Trump that much then, did he?
Well, the dude, all he really wanted to talk about was how he was going to navigate prison. He was scared to death of inmates.
Yeah, that makes sense. Did he bring up...
He's like, do I need a big black guy to protect me?
Is that what he told you?
Yeah, everybody, and even the other suicide inmates, Lopez, like, dude, just stand up and look people in the eye. It's not that bad here.
So you're telling me...
Not the penitentiary.
So you're telling me in some of those conversations you had with Jeffrey Epstein, there is no question he was in fear for his life. He was fearful.
Oh, I don't know if he was in fear for his life, but he was apprehensive about dealing with the prison population, is the way I would put it. He did go with the general population and was extorted immediately and requested protective custody.
Did he bring up Bill Clinton at any point during your conversations?
Yes, he did. He told me an anecdote about Clinton, but it's got some saucy language. I can't say it on the radio.
All right.
I believe it's in the Daily Mail.
All right. Fair enough. Again, if you're just joining us, his name is William Mersey. He spent 10 months in the same facility that housed Jeffrey Epstein. He actually bunked with Paul Manafort. Now that Paul Manafort is still behind bars, William, I don't know if you would call him a friend, but do you plan on writing him or staying within contact with Paul Manafort since he was your bunkmate?
Not allowed to, against probation.
I didn't know that, but if and when
you can't have I cannot have contact with anybody who's been convicted of a felony.
So what if when he gets out of jail, are you allowed to? If he's a free man, I would imagine you're allowed to.
Well, he won't be a free man.
Most likely not. But if he was released, say 10 years down the road, would you contact him?
I might. There's guys who are friends in prison, and I'll look you up, but you never look them up.
Sure. Lastly, I think this is very important to talk about this with you because I alluded to it last segment. For the life of me, William, you sound like a smart guy. You obviously made some mistakes in your life. You've paid your dues for those mistakes. You're not a violent criminal. Your crimes, some people would still consider serious, right? You got to pay your taxes. You don't want to screw the IRS. I get all that. But for the life of me, William, I do not understand in our justice system, or as I like to call it sometimes, the injustice system, why you would be housed in general population with men who behead their attorneys. I mean, it's yeah, and and you're right to laugh because it's so ridiculous, right? I don't understand it. Did you have bad representation? I mean, obviously, Michael Avenatti, he's got some pretty damn good attorneys.
I had high-priced lawyers.
So how the hell do you get into a facility like that? I mean, what is your explanation, or what is the explanation you got?
I think maybe my lawyer fumbled a little bit, but they wanted to be punitive with me. They didn't like the way I made the money.
So you feel
which was in the escort industry, but I was an advertising agency. They didn't have the wrong impression. They knew exactly what I was.
So we're based in Las Vegas, as you know. Did you do any business in Las Vegas through your escort advertising agency?
No, I don't think so. Not that I can remember.
You spent any time here in Las Vegas, William?
Never been.
Well, I'll tell you what. If you ever come out here to Las
Vegas, I was a friend of Dennis Hoff's.
Oh, you were? Yeah, the late Dennis Hoff, who actually won an election here after he died. That's how much people liked him here.
Right?
Yeah. No, listen, let me say, Dennis Hoff, wonderful man. He was a wonderful guy. He did treat the women that that worked for him with a lot of respect. He really did. I haven't heard anyone that worked for this guy that said anything bad about him. And certainly the late Dennis Hoff. He's been on the show before. Well, let me tell you this. Let me tell you this, William. I will give you this invite if you would like. I know that some people can get into some trouble here in Las Vegas, but I've lived here 20 years, never got into big trouble. If you ever come out here to Las Vegas, William, we would love to have you in studio. We would love to invite you in studio. Certainly, your stories are incredibly unbelievable. But I really do appreciate, William, you spending all this time in speaking with us so candidly. We're glad you're doing much better these days. And we also posted the Daily Mail story on our Twitter page if anybody wants to see that. So, William, I extend that invitation to you. We'd love to have you on again sometime. And I really do appreciate your honesty, William. And like I said, glad you're doing much better these days.
Okay, appreciate it.
All right, thank you. That's William.
Thanks a lot, William.
William Mersey, who spent 10 months in the same facility. He was the bunkmate to Paul Manafort. Let me repeat that again because it's unbelievable. Mm-hmm. He was the bunkmate with Paul Manafort, Donald Trump's former campaign manager, and his friend. What I take away from that interview, his friend was in the shoe next to Jeffrey Epstein the night that Epstein committed suicide, and his friend said that he heard Epstein ripping up sheets that night. He also had one-on-one conversations with Jeffrey Epstein when he was in that facility.
And he also said that the night when he heard Jeffrey Epstein ripping up sheets, he confirmed that no one else had entered Jeffrey Epstein's cell prior to that.
Mm-hmm. Well, listen.
Which is extremely important.
I'm not sure we will ever know the truth to what happened to Jeffrey Epstein, but I will tell you this. I wouldn't want to be in the bunk with that guy that did some stuff, whether it's pre-puberty or post-puberty. I don't want to be in a bunk. Let me put it to you this way. I'd rather be in a bunk with Paul Manafort than Epstein. That's I'll put it that way. But it's amazing that this guy actually had those decisions to make in his head. It's incredible. He's having conversations with a guy who beheaded his attorney. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
And he had a kill count of 32.
Yeah.
He was also apparently one of the most normal acting guys he's ever met. You know which again is a bit eerie.
You know what this reminds me of, JD?
To me.
JD, you know what this reminds me of? Like a scene from Con Air when they're in the airplane and you see all these. There's the serial killer. There's the rapist.
Well, it sounds like he is kind of Brooks in Shawshank, like like a younger Brooks.
In a way, I'm glad he's doing better.
Me too.
That was certainly some information that I didn't think we were going to get there. Yeah. That was riveting. I didn't know that he was Paul Manafort's bunkmate. I did know that he was in the same facility as Paul Manafort. And by the way, Paul Manafort was never in the shoe. You could certainly make the case that Paul Manafort's been treated a lot better than Michael Avenatti. And for those of you out there, again, I'm speaking to the Trump supporters and the Republicans that are haters of Michael Avenatti. If the man committed a crime, then he is going to pay the price for that. But anybody, and I'll open up the phone lines now. It's 702-257-5396. Again, 257-5396. Does anybody think that Michael Avenatti deserves to be in solitary confinement 24/7? Does anybody think that Michael Avenatti shouldn't receive a razor? Does anybody think that Michael Avenatti should be in mid-40 temperatures without a pillow? Michael Avenatti is a non-violent, alleged criminal. We don't even know. He's never even been convicted of a crime in his life. And we're talking about financial crimes. Is there anybody out there that thinks that Michael Avenatti deserves this type of treatment? Because I don't think so. If the man is convicted of a crime, he will pay the price for that. Make no mistake about it. Michael Avenatti right now is being treated as a terrorist. Michael Avenatti is no terrorist. I don't know if he committed crimes or not financially. I don't know. He hasn't been convicted of a crime. Keep that in mind. And for many of the people out there that are hypocrites, and I call you hypocrites, when you call Michael Avenatti all these names and you think he's just scum of the earth, you are the same people that have kept quiet over the course of several years over Donald Trump's presidency. You are the ones that kept quiet when Paul Manafort went to jail and many others in Donald Trump's administration were convicted of crimes. You kept quiet over that stuff, but when it's Michael Avenatti, you go after Michael Avenatti. Why? Because you're biased, because you don't like the fact that Michael Avenatti's gone after the most powerful people in the world. Open up the phone lines at 702-257-5396. Again, that number, 257-5396. It is the one criticism I talk about, and I hope I'm wrong on this, but if you are going to go after some of the most powerful people on the planet and some of the most powerful companies on the planet, in this case Nike, and if you're going to go after President Donald Trump, you have to make sure there are no skeletons in your closet, because if there are skeletons in your closet, you're going to get caught for it. Now, I say this again, I don't know if Michael Avenatti committed any crimes. We're going to find that out, but he hasn't been convicted yet. And last I checked, it was innocent until proven guilty. Why would you treat somebody like a terrorist? It would be one thing if we caught, Osama bin Laden years ago and he hadn't been convicted of a crime. I'd still be okay with putting him in 24/7 solitary confinement. It'd be one thing if, I remember we had this story a few months ago of a white supremacist in Las Vegas that was planning to kill innocent Jews in synagogues and homosexuals in gay bars. I'd totally be okay with that guy being put in a cell 24/7. But white-collar crimes, what type of society are we living in right now? White-collar crime, you need to be put in a facility like that? Allegedly, white-collar crimes, you should be in solitary confinement for 24/7 with one social phone call a month? What type of world are we living in now? Isn't this just political? When it boils down to it, Michael Avenatti's treatment, aren't we just talking about politics? Aren't we just talking about that? Aren't we talking about the Attorney General, the Trump administration, and perhaps Nike putting the hammer down on this guy? Isn't that what we are talking about? JD, am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong, Brian. But again, when we discussed a couple of days ago, but I think Nike is more involved in this than Donald Trump and William Barr. I mean, William Barr may have made one phone call, but Nike, Michael Avenatti is literally alive Michael Avenatti is a flight risk to Nike. They don't want him in any type of physical condition or mental condition to be able to beat them in court and to present his evidence and his arguments, which I believe he's going to be able to do. Especially, and I was very happy to hear William Mersey tell us this, that he's being fed well. He's being fed well. Yes, he's cold. Yes, he's got blankets. But I asked him this question. I said, do you think that it'll affect his ability, to be involved or to defend himself or to try his case against Nike or defend himself against Nike? And he said that that's not the case. So I believe that Michael Avenatti, assuming that what William Mersey told us is true, will have a very successful trial against Michael Avenatti upcoming in New York.
We'll have to wait and see what happens here. But, as far as I'm concerned, if you're one of those people that thinks that Michael Avenatti deserves this type of treatment, boy, I'd love to hear why. I certainly would. I would love to hear why you feel that way, because, I'm not just speaking in terms of Michael Avenatti. I'm just saying in general terms. This guy we just had on the show, William Mersey, who committed some tax violations, tax fraud. You think this guy should have been in that general population with violent criminals? I say no way.
He told us the reason why he was in that population, because yes, he was a tax fraud criminal, but he did it in the escort industry. and that was looked down upon, and he said it was punitive. They wanted to prove a point, and that's why they put him there. And I agree with that.
Doesn't make any sense.
I don't think he should be there under the circumstances, but I understand why he was put in that particular prison.
Yep. 702-257-5396, the number to call. Again, that's 257-5396. Let's go to the phones. Let's go to Chuck. Chuck's been waiting patiently on hold. Chuck, what do you make of all this?
What's up, Chuck?
702-257-5396 is the number to call if you want to be a part of the conversation. We're talking about Michael Avenatti. We're talking about the situation that he is in right now behind bars in this prison in solitary confinement 24/7. I'm sorry. I don't think anybody who's alleged to have committed white-collar crimes should be in that facility. I don't think anybody that is in that type of situation should be treated the way Michael is being treated. And if he is convicted of a crime, I will gladly talk about it on the radio, and we will discuss it. But until that happens, I am not comfortable with him being treated the way he is, as would be any white-collar criminal. And I'll even go as far as to say Paul Manafort. And everybody who listens to this show knows that I am not a Donald Trump supporter. I am the last person to defend Donald Trump. I am the last person to defend anybody in his horrible administration. But I don't believe Paul Manafort should have been in that prison either. Because what did Paul Manafort do? Was he a violent criminal? No, he wasn't. He committed white-collar crime. Now, they might be serious crimes, but he's not a violent criminal. Violent criminals are the ones who should be in that facility. Not Paul Manafort. He should have never been in there. Not Michael Avenatti, and not this guy we just had on, William Mersey. It is completely and utterly ridiculous. And anybody who defends these types of conditions and anybody who defends it and thinks that white-collar criminals should be in there, you're an idiot. And you have ulterior motives. I just defended Paul Manafort, and now I'm going to defend Michael Avenatti. They should never have been in this facility. It is ridiculous, and it is a joke. And I don't buy the fact that Michael Avenatti's on suicide watch. I don't buy the fact that Paul Manafort, I don't buy it. Listen, Jeffrey Epstein, those are more serious. Those are not white-collar crimes. Jeffrey Epstein deserved to be there. I have no problem with that because those are far serious than anything that Michael Avenatti, is accused of doing. And by the way, Paul Manafort was convicted, okay? He was convicted. What has Michael Avenatti been convicted of? Oh, wait. Have we forgotten innocent until proven guilty? Does that not mean anything in this country anymore? It's amazing to me that a few weeks ago we just had him on the show. Actually, it was last week, right? We had him on last Monday. Did we not?
Yeah, last Monday was the last time.
Michael Avenatti was on our show last Monday.
And you could tell the last couple of times he was on our show, he was a little different in his demeanor. He was a little more stressed out. He didn't use his typical 2 or 3 one-liners that he had every single show before that. So there's definitely something going on, and I think that we could definitely tell. Would you not agree, Brian?
Yeah, I think he was certainly stressed out. I would imagine, and I'm just guessing here, I would imagine he probably received some bad news about something. I don't think he thought he'd be in the situation he's in now. I don't want to speak for him, but I certainly doubt it.
Well, he came on and he said that he did end up losing that hearing, but he's confident he would be exonerated. And roughly, I would say 2 days after that, he ended up getting arrested in L.A.
Yeah.
In a courtroom. And then a couple days later, extradited to New York City. Now he's in the same cell as the notorious El Chapo.
Well, a month ago, Michael came in studio, and he sat in for the entire show. And we went out. We had dinner. I appreciate anybody that takes the time to come into our studio and do some segments with us. Anybody. Just like I appreciate William Mersey, a guy who's probably not proud of his past, but he was willing to share stories about being a bunkmate.
Did you find it interesting
to Paul Manafort
that he mentioned how Jeffrey Epstein only dealt with post-pubescent women instead of prepubescent women, and how there was a difference there in the crimes?
Listen, I don't care if you're a 14-year-old girl or a 10-year-old girl. To me, the crime is the same. So I disagree with him on that. I didn't want to get into a battle with him because he was being very forthcoming with the information he was giving us. But I don't care whether you're a 15-year-old girl or a 10-year-old girl. They're both equally as bad, in my personal opinion. When you hurt a young female or young male in any way, shape, or form, I want you to be convicted to the strongest extent of the law. So I disagree with him.
He actually went as far as to call them fast women, if I recall.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to talk about that. We appreciate him taking some time to join us, and it's been an interesting week. Please check out our Twitter page at The Vegas Take. Our website is thevegastake.com as well. It's a new website where we have all of our segments up there. So if you missed any of our interviews today or in the past, you can hear them. Also, our SoundCloud page is The Vegas Take. Check it all out. We are all over social media, also our YouTube page, The Vegas Take, as well. My thanks also to our guest in studio, Steve Sear, and former Playboy model Nadia Nicole, for coming in studio, as well as Joelle Gilbert joining us in the first hour as well. I hope everybody has a fantastic weekend. We will see you bright and early on Monday, folks. Have a great day.